Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome back to Giga Texas. It's another cold day here, and it's also a Friday, which means there's not really any production going on today. That is normal this week. Next week is going to be the traditional 4-day work week, 12-hour shifts with Fridays off. But I just want to remind you the week of the 15th is going to be a full week, 5 days. And then on the 19th will be the last production day here for this year, and they'll resume back up on the 5th of January. Now, one of the interesting things that I just want to point out when it has to do with production is that we've recently heard that Model Y performances have been stopped at delivery, and there's been some sort of a safety issue that they have to go back and make sure it was installed properly at the factory. Not really sure what that specific issue is, but I can show you here that there are a lot of Model Y performances that are stacking up all over the outbound lot, just waiting to get that repair or that confirmation that the fix is done before they can start resuming the deliveries. So that is definitely something I'm seeing here at Giga Texas. Now, another thing I want to talk about briefly when it has to do with kind of production, and that has to do with the Cybercabs. I've mentioned that there's been a lot of different Cybercab castings over on the east side. Today I got a much better look at kind of this hoop-like structure that forms the rear of the Cybercab. In fact, you can actually see some of the top of it where it has an indentation, which you can tell with the final roof assembly on the Cybercab where this is going to be. So this is going to help frame out the top part of that rear section, and then it will be mounted to or bolted to the rear subframe to complete the entire structure. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about briefly has to do with the Cortex 2, which is the new data center that's going to be used for Optimus training. That is definitely coming on quickly. Most of the work that you can see on the outside right now is having to do with the chiller plant installation. Of course, we've seen the screw type piers. There's a lot more that needs to be installed. Those are in. They've been putting the metal frames. Also, they've been putting sort of brackets and kind of a racking system next to the walls of the factory so that they can mount all of that equipment. On the east side, they're continuing to put frames and forms up to put concrete walls around what is most likely going to be a water tank farm, and that'll be part of that cooling system. And we also see more of those screw type piers and frames being installed on the east side, similar to the west. So we're most likely going to see a lot more of those screw type piers and the frames installed on both sides of the chiller plant as they get ready to put the equipment in so that they can have that cooling system for the data center. And of course, that work is definitely moving along quickly, but there is a lot more to go. Without further ado, I think it's time we just get into the drone, fly around, see what Giga Texas looks like on this Friday. And there is a lot more to talk about. I hope you have a great weekend. And again, thank you very much for your support. I very much appreciate it.
If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. If you are interested in Tesla products, you can help yourself and support me by using my referral code. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good morning from the far northwest side of Giga Texas. We're looking over the Lone Star asphalt and concrete plant. And this is not part of Giga Texas, but you can see where it is in relation to the main factory, the top of the screen. Now I'm just going to maneuver around here just a little so you can get a chance to see what it looks like here today. Of course, on the upper left, you can see the switchyard and the mega packs. The main factory coming into view. At the bottom center of the screen is where that new natural gas terminal was installed, and that goes all along the entire highway down to the Colorado River and over to the power plant. On this side, this is where all of those new transport trucks are being stored. And of course, with this material staging yard, we can see some of the steel that's used for interior construction. These items here, which are coolers, which I believe are for the Cortex 2 plant. And I believe that these are going to be mounted onto the platforms that are being erected on the east and west sides of that factory facility. And we'll see that momentarily. I'm also continuing to keep an eye on these Evapco fan units and base units. These have been here for many years, and I suspect that these are related to Cortex 2, but I have no way to prove that right now. So I'm just watching, and we'll see if we have those moving in that direction in the near future. Of course, this is another material staging yard that is slowly being cleared out. There are some containers and those two large white tents. And this field is where eventually we will see a welcome center constructed, although I don't see any of that work beginning. Now, there is a lot of activity on the outbound lot, some interesting details. We'll come back and take a look at that here momentarily. But first, I want to start on this side, looking at this material staging yard. This is one of the most active ones on Giga Texas, and it has a lot of different kinds of materials. We can see here some of the trays that are used for cables at the bottom of the screen. You see some of the cable spools on the upper left, containers, a lot of materials here that are used in various different construction sites. And then coming into view, we see all of these transformers that are still being stored here. Looks like there's some deliveries of spools of cable taking place right now. And eventually we will see these installed, I believe, although many of them have been leaving the site over the last year as they collect them and then move them off. As we continue to maneuver here on the west side of the staging yard, see where they have all these pipe segments. I think these are used for testing, and usually these are for the chiller plants, and the fact that they're still here makes me think that they're going to be used for the Cortex chiller plant at some point for testing. This new kind of Quonset structure and all of the materials around suggest that this is where they're doing some manufacturing of superchargers, and I'll continue to watch that. As time goes on, at the bottom of the screen we see some more conduit, and in the middle of the screen we see that large gantry crane that's been used on the east side of stamping to move some of the larger items into that part of the factory. As I kind of maneuver around here, we see a V-type circuit breaker at the bottom of the screen, some raised platform items on the bottom right, new deliveries in the wooden crates, and of course some more materials here getting ready to go into the 4680 battery cell portion of the factory. So I'm going to come up over the power lines, look over to this southwest staging yard, and off to the right this clearing. Not a lot of activity here on this part of the site today, but we have seen excavation, and they also use this for storage of some of the dirt and tunnel boring kind of the spoils that come out of that effort with the caissons. So bring the drone back down. This is where we used to see all those green wrapped large items. We know that those have been moved into the third floor of the east side of stamping and body in white. That's where we know that the Cybercab production line is right now. As I continue to maneuver around, we see more items. Some of them are production line equipment. Some of them are the concrete vaults and pipe segments that are being used throughout the site. The racks on the upper left by the tent, and those have been moved from various different sites for temporary storage, and a lot more wooden crates with more production equipment that have been delivered. We have some smaller ones here on the bottom left, and we have these white wrapped items that are just being delivered here today. Another delivery being underway right now with B11 written onto the plastic. Of course, more of the steel corrugated pipe here, and we know that that's being used over on the east side in the clearing for water management. And there are some details that we will see here today. Now, as we cross over the West Warehouse on Wheels, which is where they store materials until they're needed, so they don't need to use factory space, we also notice that the caisson here is coming to a end for the work. They have broken up the top level circular ring and concrete, and it's leaving just that manhole access point. You can see that kind of sticking up out of that circular depression. Some rebar and broken up concrete here. I expect all of this to be cleaned up soon, and then we'll see what they're going to do in this particular part of the site. Most of the rest of the equipment has been cleaned up except for the trailer, which is used for the company offices. As we continue to fly back to the north here, we see the perimeter fence on the bottom right, of course, the cyber tunnel. Here, this is a Friday, so there's not a lot of activity when it comes to production, which is normal, but there is some interesting details that I want to show you here. In fact, a lot of these vehicles, not all, but a lot of the ones you see here are Model Y performances. We do see some overflow, these red ones at the bottom, which look to be maybe long-range Model Ys. But the reason why we're seeing a lot of performance is collecting in the lot on the right, and also we're going to see multiple different other locations, is, as we talked about in the intro, a current delivery pause of Model Y performances to customers because of a required inspection that needs to be done to make sure that some safety equipment was installed properly in the Model Y performances. The other Model Ys, the standard and premiums, are not affected. Now, as we come down here a little bit closer, I did want to show you that there is a grouping of Cybertrucks. So that production has continued, although at a slower pace than we would probably like to see, but they are continuing to make the Cybertrucks. The lot below us has a mixture of different varieties of the Model Ys, but as we pass over the tents for the superchargers, we start seeing the groups of Model Y performances that are waiting here for that to be done. This is a large group on the west side of the end of line, as you can tell, and off to the right we see more of them being stockpiled temporarily as they continue to do that work to get them ready for deliveries to resume. Now on the east side, another couple of long lines of Model Y performances. Again, these are all waiting for that delivery. You can tell that they're facing to the south, which is the opposite direction of when they come in for initial processing. So again, these look like they're just in a holding pattern waiting for that to happen. Here on the north side of the end of line and where the direct delivery center is located, I did see that the work is continuing on these electrical boxes that have been installed very close to where the semi is, and you can see that charging on its charger up to the upper right. This looks like they're getting some gravel mix, or maybe, yeah, it looks like a gravel mix along here for the bottom, and there's 3 more pads, so we'll be watching to see what those turn out to be once that work is completed. So I'm going to position the drone and fly over the highway, and we'll resume on the other side. See that the crane is busy loading up items up to that platform, and we see this truck that has just arrived, and more equipment is getting ready to be moved up to the 3rd floor here. This is a close-in view of what this equipment looks like. Apparently it has some, looks like racks and kind of a conveyor belt system, probably to move either batteries or portions of the structural pack, and as part of building out that additional capacity. Here we see some more work being done with some trench boxes, some pipes, and looks like near this fence. So we'll see what they're going to be doing on this part of the site. Now there's been an extensive amount of water pipes installed throughout trenches on that side, so maybe this is just a wrap-up work. Now at the west entrance, this is what it looks like today. That structure is a demonstration of solar roofs. It seems like that's semi-permanent here, and that was put up for the shareholders day, but it has not moved since then. I'm going to fly to the south along the west side, stopping at where the extension continues. We see some truck deliveries that are underway, also some equipment that's being stored next to those black fences, and of course that open roadway that goes all the way through the factory and allows for materials and items and also vehicles to pass right through the factory from east to west. On this southwest side by the bridge, I'm going to give you a close look at the work that's continuing here near the caisson. Also, these concrete vaults, they've been stacked up quite high. If you look at the workers for scale, that'll give you an idea of how large this is. There's an excavator at the bottom of the pit. They're also actively draining it with water. You can see that off to the right. And of course, those spreader bars and the sheet piling is preventing the collapse of this new tunnel and that concrete vault that's been added in. You can see the caisson has been broken out on the top as well, very similar to what we saw across the highway. On the south side of River Road, we see what looks to be some equipment and materials for the tunnel boring that has been happening between the new caisson, which we'll see here in a moment. They're installing all of these concrete pipes, and the angle appears to connect up to that new large vault that we saw being installed next to the caisson where that large trench was. And earlier when I came by just to take some photos, I could see that one of those pipe segments was being installed. That's already been done, so they're getting ready to lift another one. You can tell by the angle here and the pistons of the direction that these pipes are going. And again, it is underneath the River Road in the direction of those concrete vaults. So I think that they are being connected underground. As we continue to fly to the east here on River Road, I just wanted to show you the continued work here in the trench boxes, and looks like they're putting some sheet pile in and around that particular excavation right now. So that work is ongoing. We did see some excavation work here in the median next to where the vehicles are parked. All of that appears to be done. You can see the darker dirt that has been kind of spread there. And I'll just pull the drone back up higher over the power lines to give you an overall view of this south end and all the work that's being done on this part of the site. The reason why I wanted to do that is that I believe eventually it connects with the River Road extension off to the right over to that new clearing. And we're going to get some very close views of that here momentarily. But as I fly through the vapors coming out of the cooling plant for Cortex 1, I wanted to just show you that all of the equipment that was arrayed here on my previous video has been moved inside, and that gantry crane has been moved over to that southwest side. There are a few smaller deliveries that are being prepared here, but as you can tell on the ground next to the wall, there's just not a lot going on here with new equipment going in. And all that stuff we saw on the southwest side, material staging yard, will probably be headed here the rest of the next week, and we'll try to get that on Monday when I come back. This is a good look at this staging yard. Many of the pipe segments that were here have already been used, and a few others have been added in. As we fly over the pond and the lined pond, I wanted to show you that many of the steel corrugated pipes that were lined up along the River Road extension and the work that's being done for that road work are now gone. And that's because they've been moved over into this depression and are being arranged into a large underground manifold, much like we had summarized or surmised on my previous video. You can see that work going on here. They've got about 4 of them parallel to each other. There's an angled section, and they're aligning it with gravel. And I believe that this is going to allow for drainage of the other drainage systems that you can see on either side of Robotic Avenue on the upper left and through where that intersection is going to be. So I suspect when this is done, it will be filled back in, and then we'll see River Road go over it, and we'll watch the rest of the construction that is going on here. Speaking of which, all of the tree debris has been mulched, and that mulch has been removed. So it's pretty much just dirt now, and they're going to have to start working on preparing the grade to get it level all the way across. As you can see, there's some hills on the right-hand side of the screen. Actually, it looks like there's another pile of that mulch material, so that will be cleared out here momentarily, but the whole site is really starting to look more and more like a site ready for some future construction. We can see a roadway under the bottom of the screen, kind of connecting over to where more clearings are being done on the right-hand side of the screen. And then here is a good look at some of the workshops, especially where pipes have been fabricated at the bottom of the screen, and the recycle yard as it looks right now. Now, because of all of the materials that are being brought in for the factory and the production lines, there's a lot of debris from the crates and packing materials, and much of that's being moved to the far north east of the cathode building, where we have a new recycling center as well as this one. This is another view here of the pipes being installed, the river road expansion, and just the rest of the drainage around either side of Robotic Avenue, and also where this material staging yard is collecting some materials, although many of the pipe segments that were here look like they have been moved away. We do see some additional pipes that are for interior, possibly cooling systems, and those are waiting for installation. As we fly along the top of the parking garage, wanted to give you some views from this perspective of what's going on the east side of the building. First, this loading dock. Again, not a lot of materials on the ground being lifted up today. And as we continue to fly along here, there is a few developments that I do want to show you as we go along this side of the building. First of all, the platform that used to be here has been removed. I had that yellow arrow, and that is a great sign. That means that the equipment that they wanted to put in here has already been done, and they're going to be closing up that part of the factory. As we continue to move further to the north, next to these towers for the power lines, again, we see more Cybercab castings. I'm going to show you some more later on in the video at a closer range, but for right now, trying to maneuver around the power lines, this gives you a great view of what these look like. These are all for the Cybercabs. I suspect Cybercab parts are in those crates. We see rear subframes. We see the front underbody. And we also see that hoop-like structure that is part of the rear segment of the Cybercabs that would be a completed unit. Now, next to all these materials, we see those two black kind of round items at the bottom of the screen. Those are for large robotic assemblers. And then here is just some additional material that is waiting for either assembly inside, or maybe it's kind of scrap from that assembly. I'm going to fly over the roof quickly and show you the progress of the solar panels that are going on here. We are now well north of that firewall, and they continue to work towards the north. You can also tell the stripes on the roof. This is where they had to repair the weatherproof membrane. Looks like since that repair work is now completed, they are able to start putting more of the solar panels on the roof. Much of the solar panel expansion that we were expecting for phase 2 has been on hold for a while as they continue to work on the roof and some of the modifications to the roofing. As we come back down a lower altitude in the northwest corner, I wanted to show you this trenching operation that is underway. It's a great view of what is going on. There's both blue and purple pipes. The blue pipe would be for fresh water. The purple pipe is for treated water. And this is extending across the north face here of the factory. And it looks like it's going to continue all the way to the east. It may even connect over to Cortex 2, which is something I will be watching. I did notice at the north end of the paint shop, again, this body in white for a Model Y standard is still outside. You can tell the green, which is the E coating, and you can also see some of the higher strength steel inside, plus the rear casting. There's also some mounts around the body in white. You can tell that they have some of that green on there, so it looks like it's being used as part of the e-coating process for the bodies. And of course, more of the stands are also there for the painted parts of the Model Y. Now, it looks like they are preparing this section for further excavation to continue to extend that pipe work in this direction. And if so, like I said, I think it may eventually connect over to Cortex 2, but that will be something I will continue to monitor. As we stay at a low altitude and get up to the northeast corner of the casting machine section, we'll fly over some of the castings in the racks, and I'll zoom in and show you more of the Cybercab castings here. That's the front underbody directly at the bottom of the screen. We see the rear subframes, and we see a bunch on the ground, and I'll give you closer views of that in a second. First of all, I'll start here and zoom in and show you the second furnace loading system. This work has been going on for a while. It's very close to being completed. You can see that the loader has moved inside the building, and we see a worker on that loading bucket right now. More materials on the ground, and you can see what looks to be kind of like spiderweb type items here and in the containers. Those are called the biscuit, and that's excess material of the castings that is then trimmed off with milling machines before they are used. Of course, the rest of the material is also here that comes in for recycling, and all of that is melted back down and used for future castings. Now, I did mention that there are a lot of castings on the ground. These are very interesting, and I decided I'm going to try to give you a close-up view, as close as I possibly can, because these are very important. This is part of the rear assembly for the Cybercab. If you remember with the unbox process, there's basically four main sections of the Cybercab body. This forms the upper part of the rear. You can see that kind of crossbar sort of rounded on the top. There's a depression in the middle, and I think that's where we see that depression on the Cybercab final roof. So this with the rear subframe makes the basic structure of the rear of the car. And to the looks of it, to me, if all of this is accurate, the Cybercab is going to be a very substantially built vehicle with pretty heavy castings front and rear. And I think that's for safety. So this is probably the best view you can get of that, at least for right now. And a more closer look at some of the recycling and the furnace loading system, and a bunch more of the details here at the melt center. So I'm going to fly up over the power lines. We'll go and take a look at what's going on at the Megapack and the electrical switchyard expansion. See the plastic on the ground here. This is how the crews lay out the cables for pulling through the conduit. See more of the spools on the left, and more of the conduit being pulled out. And this is all starting that process to connect through the conduit, the switchyard, and over to the Cortex 2. It also looks like they're preparing some of the cables here finally for this connecting tunnel that connects the original underground vault with those 3 control trailers to the new one with the 3 control trailers. As I pan around, you can also tell that 2 of the A-frames have now been added in here to the electrical switchyard expansion. It's very much a mirror of what we're seeing in the original switchyard off to the left. It also suggests that we're going to most likely see some new large power poles installed on the north end to connect to the grid. And as I kind of maneuver around, I'll try to talk about that when we get back up to the north side a little bit. But here is some of the V-type circuit breaker tops, also the disconnects on the bottom left of the screen. A great view here of the continued work to assemble a lot of the steel superstructure for the expansion, and a great way of comparing to the original installation at the top of the screen. As you can tell, there are some formwork, concrete, and slabs being placed. And by comparing to the original switchyard, you can see what's going to be going on here once that is completed. Now, because there are A-frames in this construction site, it kind of suggests that we are going to have to see some sort of electrical pole, a large one for the grid, installed on the north end, just to the north of the perimeter fence. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll note that there's a very interesting kind of electrical connection on that power pole. I've always wondered what that's for, and I think that may allow a bridge over to the power poles on the north end of the expansion. But we'll have to see if that is in fact the case. But I do expect to see some sort of pole and electrical grids, lines, high tension cables on the north end connecting to the rest of that. As we look at the north side of Cortex 2, we can see the drainage trench with the riprap on the left, also some of the materials on the north end. And as I kind of maneuver here, I'll zoom in at this entranceway. And this is the west hallway. This is most likely where some of the bigger parts, of the more important parts of the data center will be located, because on the lower levels is a lot of the cooling systems that are related to that. And the west hallway has its own set of permits, everything from fire suppression to construction. So it makes me think that may be what that is. And it runs the entire length of the building at a higher grade. As we continue to fly over this graded section, we can see some of the materials that have been laid out here, some of the drainage systems, some of the blue pipe on the left, for also near where they're doing some trenching, and some of the underground water management system. As we fly over the paved section, which will enter into what will be probably a parking lot here once this is completed, we can see the blue pipe being installed. Again, that would be for fresh water, and several trenches of that. As I zoom in, we can also see the screw type piers, some of the excavations for electrical conduit, and that lattice frame being assembled along the side of the building. As we pan the drone to the south, you can see the platforms that are being added in. And as we started with the video, I was talking about those chiller units and the Evapco fan units. This is where I think those are going to be installed at some point. Still not 100% sure. It is something I'm going to be watching, but nonetheless, they are preparing for equipment installation. I wanted to also show you this area, one, because of the lack of the trailers, and two, the screw type piers that are on the ground stored. We see several of those storage piles all over the site, which suggests we're going to see a lot more of those installed, most likely on both the east and west sides of Cortex 2. More trenching here, purple pipe, which would be for treated water. It's being prepared for installation. And here's a great view of the work here on the west side so far of the chiller plant and all of the supporting infrastructure, at least to this point in time. As I fly along the south end, this gives you a good view of some of the trench work. Again, that purple pipe I mentioned, and some more of the utility work that is going on here on this side of the site. Now, as we round the corner, we're looking at the die shop at the top of the screen with a special delivery in that accordion type truck. But also wanted to show you what is going on here with all of the form work. They are preparing for more concrete pours. So we see the wall is going to extend around this rectangular section on the right. We see more of the forms set up, and rebar work with those manifold holding points on the left near the wall. You can also see dirt is being pulled in to kind of fill in part of the section of these retaining walls, and this is kind of what it is looking like here today. A great overall view of the continuing work that is going on, and with the workers you get a good sense of scale of what all is going on. I'll zoom back in. You can see these kind of manifold holders. You can see the circles going through the concrete, and I think that's where we're going to see cooling pipes go through and then connect into the building. Another great view here of the walls at the bottom of the screen, and another platform section on the screw type piers, which mimics what we see on the west side. And I kind of expect to see more of this along this side of the building. As we continue to fly to the north along the east side, you can tell receiving docks have been installed here on that open section of the building, and they're going to do some more of those on the north end. I'll show you that here momentarily. The new workshop here has been set up using these containers, scaffolding, and plastic. You can see plastic around the cooling plant or the chiller plant for the cathode building, and also vapors on our condensation on the vaporizers. More trenching, more of the purple pipe, blue pipe, and even the green pipe, which would be for sewage, all stated here, and that will be all installed. In this opening, we can see what looks to be at least one, probably two more loading docks being installed, and a great view looking to the south along the east side of all of the activity that we just kind of recounted. So I'm going to reposition the drone, and we're going to get over towards the battery cathode plant. Before we get to the plant, I will bring the drone down here and just show you next to the lift station. We've seen some excavation work that seems to be completed here. You can see where that bobcat is bringing some dirt, and it looks like it may be related to water management system with that corrugated pipe sticking out of the ground. Great view along to the northeast of where all the materials are here. Also in that far northeast area is that secondary recycling center that I mentioned earlier in the video. No real work on the earthwork to the left of the screen, so instead I'll come here and take a look at the green transformers. Now on the north end, we see a platform with a gray transformer and a green one raised up. So it looks like they are either testing something out or preparing for an installation at some point. As we get to the crash testing facility, a lot of activity. Again, I'll zoom in. What we can see here is a variety of vehicles, some Cybercabs under covers, the containers with Cybercab parts. It also looks like there's fabrication of what may be 2 columns, and that may be for some additional testing, and many more Cybercabs under covers along the west side. I'm going to maneuver to take a look at the south end. On my previous video, we saw the rollover crash testing with the dirt. You can see some dirt remaining. That now appears to be completed, and now they're reconfiguring this for some additional training or testing. You can see the crash test wall off to the left of the opening. Also a good view of a ladder to give you a sense of scale. So I'm going to bring the drone up to a higher altitude, kind of give you a good survey of all of the sites that we saw today, and then look across the east support facility towards the main factory, and just give you an overall closing view of everything that we reviewed. I hope that you enjoyed what we were able to talk about and see. As always, thanks for your support. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.